Well, at this time, we are going to transition to our first session. We have Miss Angelique Smith, and she is going to talk to us about culturally relevant classroom management. So we're continuing on with the theme of making sure that we are not just planning without thinking about our students, but that we think about our students first and let all of our procedures and processes and preparations come from there. So at this time, I introduce to you Miss Angelique Smith, wonderful professional development consultant, and has worn many hats. And I just know that we're just going to be able to walk into our new school year with some nuggets on classroom management, culturally relevant style. Thank you, Angelique. Go ahead and unmute your mic, Angelique.
Thank you, Dr. Rita. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for attending the nugget of culturally relevant classroom management. I also want to thank Mr. Abdul Rahman for his outstanding keynote address this morning. I want to share a little bit about me and what brings me before you today. I am actually a 30-year veteran in K-12 education. I'm a retired principal, but I'm here with you and I still support schools. One thing that I remember most as a student is not the curriculum, not the mathematics that was taught, not the Gettysburg Address that we had to memorize at the time. I'm dating myself. But I remember those teachers who connected with me culturally. And I took that into my career in the United States as well as abroad on how important it is for people to receive me and how it's important for me to receive them by connections. So today we're going to go over some nuggets, some practices that we as educators, whether you are a first-year educator or you're a support person throughout your tenure, that we can learn about connecting with students so that they can be successful. Now, what's important is we need your participation. I need your participation. It's Saturday. It is about 9:30 a.m. and I need you to show me in the chat. Just put in the chat, how many of you have read or have heard of or have attended a session on the Dream Keepers that was written by Dr. Gloria Ladson-Billings? Put it in the chat. We've taken a poll and Dr. Rita is gonna let me know how many are familiar. Do we have a number, Dr. Rita? Thinking I'm seeing 9.
No, they're responding in the chat, so we're not going to do a poll on this one. I love the fact that Pamela Seda has said she has read the book on Dream Keepers.
Awesome.
Samantha Dean says she has not, so this is going to be some new information.
Okay, great.
I definitely have. Trevor Moore has heard of Dream Keepers, but he's never attended a session with Dr. Ladson-Billings. Carl Gilchrist and Marlon Pilson, they have not. First year teacher Reese Wright, she said this will be new information to her. So you are sharing some nuggets, Angelique, that they're definitely going to want to hold on to.
Okay, awesome. Well, definitely add Dr. Gloria Ladson-Billings to your reading list. Here at Fine Tunes, we are proponents, of the Dream Keepers, and it talks about, and her research is about successfully working with African American children through culturally relevant practices. Now, teachers with culturally relevant practices do 3 main things, and I'm going to share those 3 main things with you. One, let me go back. 1, we believe at the core of our being that all students can learn. And I know that some educators may use that as lip service. You know, it almost sounds cliche that all students can learn. But teachers who are culturally relevant in connecting with their students believe that at the core. Whether you're teaching kindergarten or whether you're teaching college, you have a vision that your students are going to be contributors to society and that they're going to graduate. You believe that with all your being, and you're going to do whatever it takes to make that connection with them so that they can access the learning and be successful. In addition to that, cultural practices that teachers and educators, not just teachers, but educators do, is to view students' diversity as an opportunity to maximize learning rather than a challenge. Just think about it for just a moment. We all have biases, we have prejudices, and what we have to do is, one, recognize them. Two, make sure that we do not use them in a negative way to impact anyone, especially your students. And three, use it as a challenge for you to learn and grow as an educator, and so that your students can feel a part of the learning experience. Go the extra mile to practice access learning through their personal, community, national, and global identity. Go the extra mile. Now, what does that actually mean? Well, it may mean that you have to learn a little bit about your students if they're from China and what is their belief system in China. Or if they're African-American students, it may mean, even if you're African-American, that you still have to learn something about them and their rituals and their places of worship. You have to go and make those connections. And we're going to talk about 10 strategies that you actually, 10 nuggets that you can take with you to the classroom to aid you in that process. And let's talk about those. But before we do, based on what you believe, think about your practices, whether you're going in the classroom for the very first time and you did your student teaching or something similar, or whether you are a veteran and this is your last year and you just want to refresh and get you some nuggets going into the school year. Think about what are some practices that you've done that are culturally relevant, and put yes if you have in the chat or no if you haven't.
So this is a poll. We just launched the poll. Are you a teacher with culturally relevant practices? Be honest. You can answer yes, no, or to be honest, I'm still not sure. And that is definitely an okay place for us to be. So we have 5 persons who have responded. All right, 52% have voted. Wonderful, 68% have voted. We are almost there. It looks like most of us say, yes, we are a teacher with culturally relevant practices. I love it, I love it. Waiting on a couple more votes. We're at 73%. Come on, let's get those last few votes in. All right, so it looks like 71% of us say yes, we are a teacher with culturally relevant practices. No one responded no, and 29% they said, to be honest, I'm still not sure, and that definitely is a wonderful place to be. You are in the perfect session this morning. Thank you so much. Angelique?
Awesome. So we have, just on the poll, we know that we're in the right place, and I'm excited. I'm excited because educators and students are really going to take the profession to a new level and impact the future generations to come. Now, just think for just a moment. We've all heard this, whether you was in school, going to school, or an educator providing students with education. Who remembers, the 3 R's of schooling? The 3 R's of school,
All right, Trevor has put the first R in. I love it. Yes, reading, he said
okay.
Reading and writing and arithmetic. Right, so that's Trevor Moore. Does anybody agree? Anybody have anything different? All right, Sharisa says yes, he agrees with the reading, writing, and arithmetic. Demetrius Heard, she also put the same thing, reading, writing, and arithmetic. I think this group is on it, doggone it. They got it. Marlon
They
Tilson
are.
agrees.
And they are correct. Reading, writing, and arithmetic are very important to education. But when we think about culturally relevant practices and classroom management, we have to go beyond the reading, writing, and arithmetic. It's not just the academic part of education that we have to do as educators to sow into students. And so when we're thinking about culturally relevant classroom management, or CRCM, we have some new 3 R's that we can add to the reading, writing, and arithmetic. They are realization, rapport, and respect. And we're going to talk about those for just a moment. Realization. What do you think realization actually is? How does it impact learning? Well, it's the first tenet of implementing CRCM. Realization refers to an educator need to acknowledge and explore his or her biases and prejudices, as well as determine how many impact interactions with students. Without exception, everyone has biases and prejudices, which we talked about. And instead of denying those, we need to be real about it. Our biases and our prejudice, they exist. We should educate ourselves and how to lessen their negative influence on our students and their families and communities. Our second tenet of CRCM is rapport. Rapport, from Merriam-Webster Dictionary, is defined as a relationship characterized by agreement, mutual understanding, or empathy that makes communication possible or easy. As such, if we are to facilitate CRCM, establishing rapport with students will strengthen our cultural competence and keep us adversely misinterpreting the behaviors or communications of students who differ from us. And our third tenet is respect. Again, going back to Merriam-Webster, main thing that we need to remember in terms of respect is consideration. As we are creating and implementing classroom management procedures, consideration of our students should be found of those methods. Before rolling out any new policy, any norms, we should view it from the lens of each student, regardless of the age. Additionally, we should respect students' voice and be open when they communicate feelings or thoughts of being improperly treated. Now, let me just give you a minute to read that cartoon. As we go into our strategy number 1 for CRCM, I want to talk about the one-on-one. We have to plan. We have to overplan, not just for the standards, but to make sure that our lessons are designed to connect with our students culturally. So let's look at strategy number 1. Building community by providing opportunities for students to collaborate and to support each other. In an ideal classroom before COVID-19, that may have looked like students being in groups or working with their elbow partner. But now we have to think outside of the box on what that would look like in terms of our students being successful in making that connection via community. So Zooms, there are plenty of different platforms that we can use. We can use Google Teams, we can use Microsoft Teams, Google Hangout, we can use Zoom, we can use any meeting. There's plenty of virtual platforms that we can use that now they have breakout rooms. So one thing that we could do is have our students break out into the rooms and connect with each other virtually. Strategy 2, we've seen it, we know it. This is when The teacher is standing at the door and they're greeting their students and they're making those connections with the students via positive or personal remarks. I like your braids, like your shoes, thank you for being here today. Any of those type of connections that are age appropriate for you to meet the needs of your students and make those connections with your students. Now, who can tell me of the 3 R's, the CRCM in the chat, which one would this stand fall up under? Would it be realization? Will it be rapport? Would it be respect? Come on, put it in, put it in. Do we have any in the chat, Dr. Rita?
We do. We're going to give them some time to respond.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. It looks like most people are saying rapport, Angelique. I don't see any other answer but rapport.
Awesome. This is definitely the gifted class because it is rapport, building that rapport with your students. Let's take a look at strategy number 3. Explicitly teach and model your expectations, not assume students can accurately interpret your expectation just by you stating them. Strategy 4, allow students to provide input on class norms and benefits for adhering to those class norms. Which of the 3 CRCMRs do you think that one is? Put it in the chat.
All right, I'm looking. I think they're still thinking about it, Angelique. Oh, Samantha Dean just came on with respect. Teresa Wright just said respect. SBCT. All right, Anna Weaver agrees. Good morning, everybody. Demetrius Herb agrees. I love it. I love it.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Definitely respect. We all want it, and students want it as well. Strategy 5, incorporate as much positive speech as possible. You know, we praise publicly, we reprimand privately. When students provide incorrect answers, always thank them for responding. Thank them for responding, and then build on that to help them by giving clues. That's what teachers do, by help them get to that correct answer. And I just said this one as well. You know, we praise in public, reprimand in private. No matter how difficult it may be, we know we're going to get those challenging students, or we may come to the schoolhouse and we may not have had a good day or a good ride in. Maybe it was traffic. But we have to give students a clean slate each time they enter the building. That's who we are. That's what we must do as educators. And so we kind of have to put the human side and lay it down and not hold grudges or any of that, and make sure that our students each and every day, even the most challenging student, get the opportunity to get some praise and be successful and connect with you. Strategy 7, implement restorative justice practices. They are good. That's what we want to do. We want students to be able to rationalize their action. Why did they do what they do, and correct themselves. This is a big one, especially in the world today. We want to make sure that as educators, we stay away from all of the stereotypes. And even when students may look like us, we still may have some stereotypes. You have to make sure each and every day that you make a conscious effort to interact with your students, not by what you've seen in the media. Oftentimes, and we know this from research, a Black male can go in front of a judge and get a harsher sentence because we're teaching that person, that young Black male, a lesson than a white male. The might be a different punishment. The white male may just be boys being boys, but with the black male, it may be we're going to teach them a lesson. And so we have to make sure that all of the stereotypes that may be on social media, television, on the paper, that we do not buy into that as in the paper, that we don't buy into that as educators. Strategy 9, one of my favorites: attend as many activities, extracurricular functions of your students. Students, from the old adage from before, students care. Students want to know that you care before they know anything else. They want to know that you believe in them before they know anything else. And when you take interest in them outside of the classroom, via extracurricular activities, the recreation at the park, any of those types of things where you can connect with them and their interests, then they know that you care about them and they want to please you and be successful in your classroom. For older students, you may want to go in. Wednesday may be your day where you go in and eat lunch with them and just hang out in the cafeteria and make those connections with them as well. Now, need to know, because I know we have some millenniums in the nugget session today. How many of you know who the Baby kids were? Put it in the chat. And if you think you know, describe them in one word in the chat. Who are the Baby kids?
All right, Pamela Seda has some knowledge about Baby kids. This is a reference that I know, if what am I, Gen X? We know about Baby kids, but we have some millennials on the joining us for the conference, first year teachers, second, third year teachers. And so we are wondering, do you know this reference? So Carl Gilchrist said, Baby's kids refer to some bad children. All right. Demetrius Hurd said, yes, she knows about the Baby kids. They were challenging students who misbehaved. So this is definitely a reference to I think a cartoon from a long time ago that was also made into a movie probably a couple decades ago. All right, so thank you, Angelique, for making sure that we know about this reference of Baby kids.
Absolutely. Baby kids, they came out in 1992. And as our participants stated, they were the most challenging students and children, and they wreak havoc in the community. And believe it or not, we're going to have some of those children throughout your career. I know I did for my 33 years. So no matter who they are, they must again begin each day with a clean slate and an opportunity to reach the next level of success. They want it, they yearn for it. And their baby actions are just there as a security blanket for them, because that's what they're familiar with. But once you break that connection with them and create a bond, the sky is the limit for them as students and for you as a teacher. Those are the 10 strategies for CRCM. But before we end, I have to share this with you. Want an opportunity to earn an Amazon gift card for your classroom? Please post your favorite CRCM strategy on your Facebook page with the hashtag Nuggets for the number 4 new teachers and make it shareable. We at Fine Tunes are going to select several posts to share on our page. And if your post is selected, you'll receive an Amazon gift card. Thank you so much. And we wish you a fantastic Fine school year.
Thank you all so much. Angelique, thank you for your presentation. If we can go back to a couple of slides, Angelique. So the first slide the first strategy she talked about was making sure that we build community by providing opportunities for students to collaborate and support each other. And I love the fact that Angelique brought out that in a COVID-19 world, we're having to be a little bit more creative. We're having to go into our virtual bag of tricks and think about how exactly can we ensure that we're building community when a lot of us are going to be starting online. So I just want to reiterate the point that we can start each class with an opportunity for students to boost their social emotional health. During this time, we have to remember that the stress levels are high. They're high in our households. They're definitely high in the households of our students and their parents. And so we want to ensure that we are providing those points of release for our students when they come into our classroom. We're definitely concerned about their academics. We're definitely concerned about their cognitive domain, where they are thinking and processing knowledge. But we are also want to make sure that we take care of their affective domain, that part of them that feels, and that part of them that deals with their emotions. And so we have the opportunity to start each class with something that will just help them to be able to process what they are feeling, process how they've been thinking. They haven't been in a situation in school in which they're in a classroom since March. So we want to make sure that we take the time to focus on the standards, but also focus on the social emotional health of our students as well. And Zoom is one of the platforms that really has a lot of features that caters to classrooms. And so we want to make sure that we bring out the fact that since March, Zoom has offered a basic package for educators that has unlimited meeting times. So ordinarily, if you log into Zoom and you sign up for their basic package, you can only have meetings for 40 minutes. If you log in with your school email address, then you are able to have class sessions without the parameters. And as far as we know, Zoom is the only online platform that has the breakout rooms, which allow us to differentiate and to have those small groups and allow us to have those conversations in a setting that's not as daunting as 25 or so different kids. So definitely want to make sure that you all remember strategy number 1. And then Angelique talked about strategy number 2. We love it. So we might not be able to stand at a physical door, but we can stand at our Zoom screen and just make sure we take a couple minutes before the class time just to compliment the students on what they're wearing, what they're doing, and just making sure that we make those connections. Angelique really brought out a strategy number 7 that I wanted to talk about a little bit more. Implement restorative justice practices. We live in a world in which people say things and don't take responsibility. They do things and they don't feel like they owe anyone anything. But I like that Angelique included in her presentation restorative justice practices, because when you implement these practices, you're going to let students know that everyone has to have a sense of responsibility for their actions, okay? If I do something to harm you, I need to go back and ask, are you okay? I need to apologize. I need to let you know I'm here for you. So when you look a little bit further into restorative justice practices, this is not a system where we're disciplining students, even though there's time in which we have to punish students. But restorative justice takes it a step further and has the students to process their actions, and then they have to do something to contribute to the learning environment. So because their actions took from the learning environment, restorative justice practice says that now you have to learn how to give back to the environment. So I'm just so thrilled about restorative justice practices being a part of this presentation, because again, with what we're seeing in our nation from our leaders, unfortunately, a lot of our leaders, they're just not implementing restorative justice practices. And we want to make sure that we are supporting and that we are nurturing children who are going to learn to take back, or who are going to learn to give back when they take away from the learning environment. So thank you so much, Angelique. And as she said, we want everyone to go ahead and share your favorite culturally relevant classroom management strategy with the hashtag nuggets for new teachers, because it is time for us to go ahead and see who has posted on Facebook. Carl Gilchrist said, wonderful presentation, Miss Smith. Love it, love it, love it, love it.